You've been told that if you're not measuring, you're not improving. That every goal needs a tracker, every habit a streak, every dollar a ledger. And for a while, it works. You hit your numbers, you feel the momentum, you think you've cracked the code. But then something strange happens. The numbers stop moving. The streak breaks. The progress you once felt evaporates, and no amount of tracking brings it back. You're stuck on a plateau, and the more you check, the more you spin your wheels. What if the problem isn't your effort? What if the very act of checking is what's holding you back? This is the Plateau Paradox. The moment you stop measuring, you start growing. And in this video, we're going to break down why that's true, and how the men who master this paradox leave the rest behind. The common belief is simple: what gets measured gets managed. It's a mantra drilled into every ambitious man from the moment he starts chasing goals. You want to build muscle? Track your lifts. You want to get rich? Track your spending. You want to master a skill? Track your hours. The logic feels bulletproof. If you can see your progress, you can adjust your approach. If you can't see it, you're flying blind. This belief is reinforced everywhere. Productivity gurus sell you apps to track every minute. Fitness coaches demand you log every rep. Financial advisors tell you to review your portfolio daily. And for a while, it works. Early on, the numbers move fast. You lose 5 pounds in a week. You add 20 pounds to your bench. You save your first $1,000. The feedback loop is intoxicating. But here's the trap. The same tool that accelerates early growth becomes the anchor that stops it later. Because when the numbers slow down, your brain interprets that as failure. And failure triggers a response that kills the very behavior you're trying to build. The belief fails because it confuses measurement with progress. Measurement is a snapshot, not the journey. When you check your progress constantly, you're not actually growing. You're just taking more snapshots. And snapshots don't change anything. Worse, they distort your perception. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect. When you focus on a single metric, you blow it out of proportion. You lose sight of the bigger picture. You start to believe that a bad week means a failed year. But the deeper problem is neurological. Every time you check your progress and see no change, your brain releases a small dose of stress. Over time, that stress builds into anxiety. And anxiety is the enemy of deep work. It pulls your attention away from the task and onto the outcome. You stop being present in the process. You start performing for the metric instead of for mastery. And that's when you plateau. Not because you've stopped improving, but because you've stopped paying attention to the thing that actually matters, the work itself. So what's actually true? The real mechanism is what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called flow, a state of complete absorption in an activity where time disappears and performance peaks. In his landmark studies at the University of Chicago, Csikszentmihalyi found that people report their highest levels of creativity and productivity not when they're checking outcomes, but when they're fully immersed in the process. The key ingredient? Clear goals, but immediate feedback that's intrinsic, not external. In other words, you need to know if you're doing well, but not by looking at a dashboard. You need to feel it. When you stop checking progress, you free up cognitive resources. Your brain stops worrying about the future and starts focusing on the present. That's when you enter flow. And flow is where real growth happens. It's not about ignoring results. It's about trusting the process enough to let go of the need for constant validation. The paradox is that by giving up the measurement, you gain the mastery. History is full of men who understood this paradox. Take the Japanese swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. In his Book of Five Rings, he wrote that the warrior must not fixate on the opponent's sword, but on the space between them. He trained his students to stop counting strikes and start feeling the rhythm of combat. Musashi won over 60 duels, many against opponents who were faster and stronger. His secret wasn't better tracking. It was deeper presence. Or consider the modern example of K. Anders Ericsson, the psychologist who studied expert performance. His research on violinists at the Berlin Academy of Music showed that the best performers didn't practice more hours. They practiced with more focused attention. They didn't check their progress every 5 minutes. They entered a state of deliberate practice where feedback came from the sound of the instrument, not from a stopwatch. The evidence is clear. The men who reach the top of their fields are not the ones who measure the most. They're the ones who care the least about measurement and the most about the work. So what do? First, set a clear goal, but then forget it. Write it down, put it in a drawer, and don't look at it for 90 days. Second, replace external tracking with internal feedback. Ask yourself after each session, did I feel focused? Did I lose track of time? Did I enjoy the struggle? If the answer is yes, you're on the right path. Third, schedule a single review point once a month, not once a day. At that review, look at your results, but don't judge them. Just observe. Adjust your approach, then go back to the work. Fourth, embrace the plateau. Understand that plateaus are not failures. They're the body and mind consolidating gains. When you stop checking, you stop panicking, and the consolidation happens faster. Finally, remember the words of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The plateau isn't a wall. It's a door. But you can only walk through it if you stop staring at the lock. The Plateau Paradox is not about being lazy or ignoring results. It's about having the discipline to trust the process when the numbers go quiet. It's about understanding that real growth is often invisible, happening beneath the surface, like roots spreading in dark soil. The man who checks his progress every day is a man who doubts himself. The man who checks once a month is a man who trusts himself. And that trust is what separates the mediocre from the master. So here's your challenge. Pick one area of your life where you've been obsessively tracking. A workout routine, a savings goal, a skill you're learning. And for the next 30 days, stop checking. Just do the work. Feel the work. And at the end of the month, look back and see what happened. I suspect you'll be surprised. If this video shifted something in you, if you're ready to stop measuring and start living, then hit that subscribe button. Join the men who are building their iron marrow, one unmeasured rep at a time. The path is waiting. Walk it.